Oh, look at us live. Just about to make some stupid joke. Oh
The
man.
jean jacket sandwich, I think, is what the screen looks like.
Hey, we got to get mileage out of them, and no one has to know that I'm wearing it in Arizona and it's like, 100 degrees outside. No one has to know.
Hey everyone, if you're just tuning in, my name is Yousef. I'm a research analyst at Messari. I'm joined by Robb, who's head of developer relations at Flow, as well as Matt Nofi, who's who runs community management and growth at Flow as well. Today we're going to be having a conversation about the State of Flow Q2 report, and we're just going to give everyone 2 minutes to hop in before getting into the report.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to chat about it. And I was like, yeah, it's been a pleasure working with you. You're a great analyst, so I'll give you your flowers before we can get started.
Appreciate it.
And if anybody's wondering, Sean and I truly did not plan the matching jean jackets, the matching AirPods. This is not a stunt. Not that I mind though. We're a united front here at Flow. We roll deep.
It's really united.
Flow issued jean jackets and AirPod Maxes. Yeah.
Love it. Well, I think we're good to get started now. Maybe we could start off with some quick intros. Sean, how about you tell me a little bit about yourself and about your role at Flow and what you're doing currently?
Absolutely. So my name is Sean. I lead up developer growth at Flow. That spans across developer experience, developer education, and developer relations. And my big goal is effectively to grow our base of developers on Flow, building from our existing community and really trying to outreach to more and more builders. So I was really excited to kind of see the impact we had last quarter and excited to talk more about that. Before Flow, I was leading up engineering for Dapper Wallet and growing an ecosystem over across Dapper Wallet. With NBA Top Shot, NFL All Day in those applications. Then before that was leading up development of MasterCard and their edge computing network as well. So distributed computing has always kind of been a thing of mine, and now it's more decentralized computing and developer platforms is my day-to-day.
It's very exciting. How about you, Matt? Can you tell us about how you got involved with Flow and what you're working on?
Yeah. And so tough to follow that one up from Sean. Just such an impressive pedigree. But myself, I very much kind of come from Web3 from the kind of user perspective, the collector perspective. We were joking just before this call that I tried to mint an NFT during my first interview at Flow. So I mean, if that tells you a little bit about kind of who I am, then that's awesome. But yeah, so I got started here at Flow. I would have been almost about a year and a half ago. I came through actually the Flow Ambassador program and met the Flow team for the first time in person at ETH Denver, and worked on kind of creating some content with them and helping them with the storytelling. Because one of the things that impressed me most about Flow is I felt like there was such an interesting story to tell about kind of the origins of Flow, from CryptoKitties and the world's biggest brands building on Flow. But when I got exposed to it, and you see the things that people talk about in crypto every day, and I was like, why are people not talking about Flow every single day? And so I came on board kind of as a community manager to help Flow achieve that goal, to get the kind of not notoriety, but the kind of the fame that I believe it deserves. And so, yeah, I've been doing that every day, helping with marketing, growth, community management, helping our apps succeed, working really closely with the apps on the network, helping them advise them with go-to-market, things like that, so that everyone here, feels welcome, they're successful, and that, the kind of rising tide lifts all ships here at Flow.
Well, you must be doing something right, because I've definitely felt the force of the Flow community. I guess I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about, why Flow. Few chains can match Flow's consumer heritage and IP distribution. So I want to know, what aspects of that matter most when onboarding brands beyond their recognition?
Yeah, I could take this one to start off with. I mean, I think that, and there's probably a multitude of answers to this question. And so I'll start at one that's kind of interesting that may be unusual and then kind of work our way back to the basics. So like one of the things that I found most fascinating recently, and this is almost a symptom of brands like NBA building on the blockchain and on Flow specifically, that I found fascinating as kind of a collector is publishing digital assets or NFTs on Flow is actually much more akin to distributing cardboard collectibles than people realize. And I think that's actually really appealing to these world's biggest brands in the sense that they can mint an NFT, an NBA Top Shot moment, and then it can live on in perpetuity without them ever having to manage the server size, the costs associated with that. Think about any other brand. I think about something like, it's a silly example, but Neopets was big when I was growing up. Each new collection, each new character, each new world they come out with is just a greater and greater kind of encumbrance on their costs that goes forever. Which is why do you think Call of Duty is constantly shuttering servers and winding things down because they have to. It doesn't make business sense. But now the world's biggest IPs can kind of create collectibles in the same way that they would think about traditional physical collectibles, which I think is really cool. It reduces platform risk for them. There's many of the other benefits. But additionally to that, from a more technical perspective, Flow enables to have kind of a seamless onboarding experience with better kind of account abstraction, the user experience. I think Dapper Wallet was arguably maybe still ahead of its time when Flow first debuted in 2020, and people could buy digital collectibles, NFTs with a credit card, right? I would say that we probably still haven't nailed that more broadly, and they were doing that in 2020. And so I think that is a massive appeal. Simply that, and you look at today how that's progressed. You can get an NBA Top Shot moment in the NBA app, right? And those brands have to feel hyper confident that they can expose their non-crypto audiences to these products, and they can have a smooth experience because they won't surface it otherwise, right? And so I think that trust that Flow has garnered with those big brands is invaluable. But Sean, feel free to add to that. But that's kind of my first thoughts.
No, that's the massive one, right? And for Flow, why I think Matt started with one of the problems he's looking to solve is you don't hear a lot about Flow, but you hear a lot about the apps on Flow, and that's really because we lead with our applications and our brands and shine spotlights on them. So you have NBA Top Shot, Disney Pinnacle, NFL All Day, BZ, Floaty, all of these brands and applications really allow for Flow to kind of be an enablement layer or background while they get to shine, and we don't necessarily get in the way or introduce quirks that they have to do certain things because it's the blockchain, and really lets them kind of own their user, own their experience, and really build out something unique and special.
That makes sense. And the blockchain itself has been a little hard to deal with in terms of user experience across the board, really. And so I'm kind of curious more broadly, like where do you see or still see those UX gaps that could stall mainstream users from going on chain?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short because I have a lot of experience here. When I was running Dapper Wallet, it was during the NBA Top Shot cycle, and we had, for some of our drops, we would have the entire population of the city of like Atlanta effectively outside waiting for our drop. And the issues you run into when you have that mass appeal are radically different than I think how they get boiled down to when people talk about technical UX issues, right? So some of the problems like on-ramping I think still exists, is getting significantly better, but on-ramping still exists. Having to install a wallet, having to understand what a wallet is and what's its purpose and where things are stored, all of these things are incredibly confusing. And so one of the benefits that I think Dapper Wallet leaned into, and you'll actually see it's leaned into even more, is it's not even a forefront of most people's experience anymore. When they click sign in with NBA Top Shot, it shows NBA Top Shot and shows hey, this is just like a sign in with Google. Dapper Wallet's kind of hidden in the background, just kind of this on and off ramp. So it starts to feel much more like enablement of Stripe versus like in your face like a PayPal for on ramps, right? And the more and more that you can let those brands take the forefront, own their user experience and own the customer experience, the higher conversion that they get. And then that higher conversion is really that UX is smooth, right? So every single click, every single install, every single drop off point needs to be ironed out. And while we see a lot of those done, we still celebrate like these nuanced wins of like, look, I can buy this specific crypto token with a credit card. Isn't that onboarding? But it's no, you still had to install a wallet. You still needed to, you can only buy a certain amount of this, or you can only use these types of banks. All of these nuances, while we can kind of celebrate the small wins, are really kind of missing the bigger conversion drop off. And a lot of things we can learn from e-commerce, and these rails are really kind of built out. I think we are making big strides in that direction. But if so much of this is like still, I call it like the wizard onboarding to blockchain. Most people have like their wizard guide that takes them through of install this wallet, buy these tokens, do this. And that's kind of how the first internet onboarding worked as well, which is fair. But really when it took off is people said, oh, well, you just go to Facebook and you check that out. And that you don't need a wizard to go use Facebook. You just can go use these things.
That makes sense. So, now moving on to like the protocol strategy, I noticed that Flow recently supported some changes post the Pectra upgrade in order to continue its EVM equivalence. Could you tell me a little about why Flow wanted to support those changes and why EVM equivalence is important?
Yeah, so it's really kind of important of how we talk about how Flow achieved EVM equivalence as well, and how we could support the Pectra upgrade so quickly. Actually, how the EVM runs on Flow is it runs on top of Cadence almost as a virtual machine itself. And so the benefit of doing that is we're running raw Geth, if you want to get into like real weeds of it. And we basically, when upgrades come out for ETH that get supported by ETH mainnet, Flow, we want to be ETH mainnet compliant. So anything that you can run on Ethereum mainnet, you should be able to run on Flow with no code changes. So once the Pectra upgrade was adopted by mainnet, we wanted to pull it in, and it was a matter, I think, of maybe a day or so of our engineers' time, because they literally took the new version of Geth, threw it on top of Flow, and made sure it ran virtually the same, and we were good to go. When you look at other networks and how they've added EVM compatibility, often includes smart contracts, where they've like coded in a lot of these EVM rules in processes. So any of the changes, whether it's Pectra or whatever the next upgrade is, they would effectively have to have a smart contract change, which could be a breaking change and they wouldn't have to upgrade. Versus for Flow, it's a couple days of work and we can always stay in tune with what's been going on in that environment. And then like to your earlier question of that, what's the importance of EVM equivalence? Why did we add it? Really, it's about the promise of Web3 and interoperability, right? Web3, there was a huge promise, and we talked about it a lot during the Top Shot NFT boom, was look, you can take your asset and go anywhere with it, but it was kind of a broken promise at that time, right? You couldn't take a Top Shot and list it on OpenSea. You couldn't take a Top Shot and turn it into a fungible ERC20 and move it wherever you wanted to. And that was partially due to our incompatibility with the EVM standards. And so adding in EVM equivalence, connecting the ecosystem the way that we did, really opened up the doors, not just for Top Shots to move into OpenSea, but also for fungible tokens to move into Flow. And so this really opened up the wider Web3 ecosystem, brought together interoperability and composability, and really kind of kept that promise that we all believe in and brought us here to Web3.
Awesome. And on the note of rolling upgrades, I was curious about what operational trade-offs the team was accepting to avoid that downtime.
Yeah, so we have the new rolling upgrade type, and really it's always kind of been a battle for as you talk about a maturing protocol or maturing tech, right? And so you get to kind of choose two things. You get to choose moving quickly and upgrading, being very agile and making things happen, but to do that very quickly, you often have to accept some level of downtime, or you can move more methodically and slowly and introduce rolling upgrades or introduce this, because you actually have to code in different challenges of like, what if there's different node software types? How do you handle all these different cases? And for Flow, we go through each of those upgrades and really try and weigh, well, if we were to try and make this a rolling upgrade, how much more time would that add to this? And do we think a little bit of downtime is worth it, or should we take the extra time and make this a rolling upgrade? And really our goal is to get to that 100% uptime, but we want to make sure we're able to move agilely and quickly. So there are times where we accept a bit of downtime to make sure that we can move quickly. And there's many different protocols have taken different approaches, right? You see Ethereum mainnet really proudly touting its 100% uptime over the years, but I don't think anyone can say it moves very quickly when they make changes, right? They take months or even years sometimes to move through changes. And when we think about the maturity of our technology and where it is today versus where we want it to be in 2 years, we want to make sure that we can move agilely, quickly, and perform in a very rapid manner. So I'm really excited we introduced the ability to do these rolling upgrades and add the fundamental components so that we can keep our changes moving even when we don't necessarily want to accept downtime. But I also like when I look at the challenges of doing that, sometimes we have the very honest conversation, like it would be better if we just we're down for a little bit in notes and brought them all back up with the same version. So it's huge that we're able to do so many things, even like the Pectra upgrade with no downtime though. So while we leave that space open, many of our upgrades are happening now with zero downtime.
That's very exciting. Another exciting infrastructure upgrade in Q2 or cross VM support for NFTs. So that allows you to control how NFTs are represented when you're moving between Cadence and the EVM environments. Matt, I'm kind of curious, like what was the driving force behind that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it kind of goes back to what Sean was talking about earlier, as far as kind of like the promise of interoperability, right? And the ability to do what you want with your digital assets, right? It's almost like digital asset property rights, right? Like you have the ability to control these assets, where they go, what they do, they're in your wallet, and also the developer flexibility to define the metadata that accompanies those as well, and make sure that that matches on the Cadence side and on the EVM side. But I think the kind of importance of it, as far as the why, I do think goes back to the interoperability, decentralization, kind of sovereignty of your assets. And I think that demonstrates the part that excites me most about it is the kind of progressive decentralization of it all. I think a lot of people talk about decentralization, but you can actually see this play out over a long time horizon with NBA Top Shot. Started off in Dapper Wallet, kind of a closed ecosystem for the benefit of the UX. And then over time, as it became more secure, different features were built out, they started to kind of open up those doors. And now you can take that NBA Top Shot moment out of your Dapper wallet, bring it into your Flow wallet, list it on OpenSea, and now people can build more. They can compose on top of that, build different experiences on top of that. And so I think the part that I'm so excited is it now has a roadmap of other products that can do the exact same thing. I'm a big fan of Disney, and so I'm like, when's that happening for Disney? But so I love that, and I think that speaks more towards the kind of progressive decentralization of the protocol more broadly, right? I think that is probably worth just at least thinking about is how Flow has progressed in that way over the years, right? And how it's truly become a permissionless, autonomous protocol, and that was always the mission, and we're continuing to kind of march towards that a little more every day.
Awesome. Well, Q2 was, a great quarter with lots of, data points that we could highlight here. I want to start by talking a little bit about DeFi. DeFi TVL is at around 68 million as of Q2, up 46% quarter on quarter. How do you see the DeFi ecosystem evolving going forward?
Yeah, I could talk about this one a little bit. Yeah, it's great. I think, like you said, Q2 TVL was 68 million, like you said, up 46%, which I think was the previous quarter was like up 26%. So like, as they like to say in the space, accelerate. And so really cool to see that. I think we're sitting at 89 million now, so it's continuing to go up. But this is part of what EVM Equivalence unlocked for us is the ability to port over kind of existing tooling, existing protocols. Like there's a ton of code built on Solidity, specifically DeFi, that people were able to launch along with novel, new and unique things, but kind of that base layer. It opened up, bridging infrastructure. I think now we have LayerZero, deBridge, Hyperlane, all of these bridging partners now available because of that EVM Equivalence, which has just allowed liquidity inflows, which has been awesome, which has contributed to that TVL. It's making Flow, I think at some point, I don't know if it was this past quarter, but some of our DeFi protocols were some of the fastest growing DeFi protocols in the space, like en masse, which is really cool. So you're seeing people like Kitty Punch, more markets, they're really innovating. More markets is shipping on-chain permissionless vaulting infrastructure. So people are building really novel, interesting stuff, and the market's responding appropriately. So it's really exciting time to be building on Flow.
Definitely. Yeah, I think more markets was up 327% quarter on quarter. Very impressive. On the cross-chain side of things, EVM daily transactions spiked around sixfold since integrating with LayerZero and other cross-chain bridges. What does this tell your team, and how is it influencing your protocol strategy?
I mean, I think at the very base layer, so Crescendo upgrade was the last major upgrade. That's the one that debuted EVM equivalence. Our Cadence programming language was brought to maturity with Cadence 1.0. That happened September 2024, I believe. And so that was a big moment for us in the sense that Flow was betting big on EVM equivalence. We had a theory that if we deploy this EVM environment that lives within our VM, it's a novel, interesting approach, but we think it's a really powerful way to kind of attack this problem of bringing that existing tooling infrastructure on our network. And we hoped that there would be this kind of adoption as a result of that. And so there's a great saying called faith is hope with a track record, right? So there was a lot of hopes pre-crescendo. We're like, we hope, we see builders, come build on the chain. We hope this infrastructure comes online. We hope this, we hope that. And that has just proven to become true time and time and time again. And so now that has given us a faith that, that we can continue to drive in this direction, double down on that, continue to maintain EVM equivalence. But now that we're seeing more activity on the network, now we're doubling down on our Cadence side as well. We're seeing more developers starting to rediscover what makes Flow so special, what they can't do anywhere else. And so I think we're now both VMs are being lifted up, and that was the theory. And so we're continuing to press forward with that. But
Awesome.
Sean, please feel free to add to that if you have any additional nuance.
No, I think you nailed it, right? And it's really trying to make sure we're opening that gateway to the wider multi-chain or omni-chain world. And more people want to try and spread their capabilities across different networks. So making sure Flow can be a part of that drop down and also allow to give them unique advantages to build things here, just with a couple lines of code, is really what we've seen time and time again, whether it's with builders at hackathons or builders that we're beating outside of that. So it's exciting to see that interoperability narrative really take off, and it's exciting to see people really latching on to the benefits they have here.
That is very exciting. I also noticed that daily active addresses fell this quarter, but transactions per address rose. So I'm curious, how are you thinking about serving power users without turning this tent into a club, so to speak?
Yeah, one of the it was interesting to see that data, and I thought that was really insightful. And so one of the things that I think that we're starting to see is kind of a power user community emerge within Flow. And I think one of the factors that's driving that is actually our Flow Community Rewards program. So our Flow Community Rewards program is this. I feel like I keep on saying like novel, like everything's novel, but I mean, to be fair, Flow does things a little bit differently. And our rewards program is kind of no different there. You can use apps on Flow, discover new apps, try new apps, and gain what we would call keys and boxes. So you gain boxes from doing DeFi and earn experiences, and keys from doing kind of like play, collect experiences, NFTs, games, etc. And then you combine those keys of the box. You open the box of the key, and then you get points. And so what we've seen is that people are discovering new apps, trying new things, going deeper, and then apps in return are feeling empowered to drive different user behavior and use it as a user acquisition tool. And so there's an emergent kind of community of power users on our new VM on the EVM side that are really trying new apps and diving deep. And so yeah, it's exciting to see that power user community emerge. And yeah, those people are getting MacBooks and Xboxes and a bunch of fun stuff in real time. They're not quote unquote farming for a vaporware TGE down the road. They're getting rewarded with real things for doing real activities. So it's exciting to see.
And Disney Pinnacle this quarter had a partnership with Disney Plus, offering Disney Plus subscribers a Pinnacle pin. So are the Disney Plus subscribers who redeem this pin going off and interacting with the ecosystem? What do usage trends and retention look like for this cohort of users?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I think this kind of goes back to the Top Shot thing that I was previously talking about, kind of about like progressive decentralization. And there's some core protocol features available on Flow, specifically one called account linking, that I think will enable this user journey to occur in the future. Right now, the Disney Pinnacle app is in early access, and so it's very kind of limited in its user base. But which is cool that Disney Plus trusts even an early access app enough to surface it to 50 million members, which speaks a lot to the kind of security of the network. But I think what we'll see over time is those users convert onto kind of more Flow users via account linking. So right now, I'm not sure the exact kind of conversion of what those users are going off and doing after they mint their pins. But what account linking will enable them is to link their Dapper account, essentially like an app embedded wallet, right? So you're going to have, you're seeing this emerge all over Web3. You have a wallet over here for this app, a wallet over here for this app, and that enables really, smooth user experience in those apps. But they're not connected in any meaningful way. And so Flow has a feature called account linking. So you can take that Disney Pinnacle wallet and link it to your quote unquote like Web3 wallet, the thing that you go around, think about it like a hot wallet maybe, that you're transacting more freely on chain with. And so we expect over time, as those knobs begin to turn, people will be able to link that account. And as they feel more safe and comfortable transacting on chain and having self-custody, then they'll convert in that way. So in time, it's still in early access now, but we have high hopes for that in the future.
Can I just jump in on something just like how crazy the first sentence is, just thinking of how new we are in the space, right? Like we're talking about Disney Plus subscribers getting NFTs like directly through there from Disney themselves, and having those be digital pins. Like I don't know Yousef, but for myself, like when I was first getting into the crypto space, that was like far past the wildest dream that I thought would happen, and it's crazy that it's a real headline that's really happening, and it's incredible that the Disney team is really putting that directly on our network with Flow, and that's. Yeah, I wasn't going to let us just like gloss over the technical details of this. I wanted to really highlight that because that still feels like a dream for me some days.
No, dude. I mean to even further illustrate that. Yeah, when I was for those who are watching who were in the 2021 NFT era, we were grinding in the discords for the allow list. We were praying that an influencer would look our way, post about it on Instagram, but genuinely. From my TV, I got a QR code on my TV at my house that said Disney Plus perks. I can scan that and get a Disney pin. Like that is insane. That's crazy that it's literally brought to me in my living room. And once again, illustrates the fact that these big brands feel comfortable enough surfacing these digital collecting experiences to people without a custom, like they know that it's not going to break down, if that makes sense. They don't have to have a wizard, to Sean's point, accompany someone on that user journey. They could just drop a QR code and assume that someone can safely onboard themselves onto crypto, which is massive.
Right, and I'm sure that involves a lot of trust assurances, or just overall trust with the protocol itself. Great, and I guess you could consider this to be a mass onboarding event. I'd like to think so, with about 50 million eligible subscribers.
Yeah, I think 50 million eligible, and then the previous headline that blew my mind before is Ticketmaster is giving away collectible ticket stubs to people that go to like NFL games, and like the mass onboarding, like it's literally stadiums at a time that we're onboarding into Web3, and like I think anyone that's been to these stadiums, they're massive tens of thousands of people at one event, and you think of other PFP communities, no matter how awesome and rabid, many of them stop at 10,000. Like you could fit all of those in a very small arena, but we're talking about stadiums at a time being onboarded, and now entire digital fandoms of Disney Plus fans getting onboarded.
Yeah, I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about the developer initiatives on Flow. So recently there's been the Use AI to Build on Flow initiative. There's cursor integrations, you can play around with the model context protocol. What was the motivation behind that initiative, Sean?
Yeah, so the whole AI is not only just a trend, right, that we're seeing, and a lot more people who are experiencing with building, and I can point to different hackathons that I went to, and I'm having a lot of people come up to me and saying, this is my first time actually building any type of software, and they come to like a crazy Web3 hackathon and they're building on Flow, and that's like incredible to see. Another just small story about that, the latest hackathon I think it was an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old built an education product on Flow of teaching people about NFTs. And like all is now possible because of what AI has given them, and is credible of a tool. And really how we see it in Flow is we made many strategic bets at Flow when building it out, and so many of them have either turned out to be like true, and other networks are starting to adopt some of those concepts, or we're really seeing it pay dividends with some of the other trends like in AI. For a couple examples there, right, is every single Cadence contract that you upload to Flow is openly readable. You can download it and read it and see it. That's not true with Solidity. That's not true with Rust. That's not true with Move. Why did we do that? Because we thought if you're going to trust this code that you don't know who wrote it, you should be able to read it. That's like a fundamental thing that we thought was important. But it turns out it's actually massively important for AI to be able to gain even further context of how they can compose and interact and build on Flow. And then the other part of that is really just a part of our whole dev education pillar in general. If it's one of those things, like I like to think of AI as like a really bright junior developer. And if you can teach AI how you can build on your network, and if you can teach AI on meet AI where it's at, you're just opening the door even wider to the onboarding funnel of building on Web3, right? And if you really look at the pie chart of developers, and we talk about this a lot in education, the education pillar of our team. Really, there's a few thousand developers building in Web3 versus like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of developers in the world. Fighting after the thousand that we have is awesome, and we should really try and cultivate those developers. They're pioneers, they're bleeding edge. But if we're able to get the developers that get interested in building the next generation of the internet and have them come to Flow because it's easier to build there than anywhere else, that's really what kind of opened up the door and opened up the possibility. And AI is just one of those tools in the tool belt that we think will open the door even wider.
Makes a ton of sense. And like, what are some unique challenges that presents itself with? You know, I'm sure leveraging LLMs for on-chain querying can be a little tricky.
Yeah, so two aspects. One is the programming language that was specifically built by teams that built smart contracts on Solidity and saw the pains of it, made Cadence. And really one of the two challenges that they tackled with that, one of which Cadence is very human readable, and it allows for you to very clearly kind of articulate where things are moving and assets and resources. And so it's very it's difficult to make a typo or a mistake in Cadence that allows you to like delete metadata or lose an asset, or open up yourself for reentrancy, where like if you look at Solidity code, and I think many of us have probably seen like the Solidity reentrancy breakdowns of like, here's this one line of code, or this line was slightly different, or if they changed this one piece, or they moved this operation, and it actually made them hack the whole smart contract. Many Solidity hacks, like the code looks good at first glance. They get audited half the time, and it's still so difficult to read that they open themselves up to these attacks. Where Cadence is very different. We have many different auditors to that, and we've gotten feedback from auditors jokingly saying, you're going to put us out of business. It's so easy to read what's going on with Cadence and understand. And that's incredible to kind of get his feedback for a language, especially when you believe more applications should be on chain. And then the other aspect of that, specifically around queries, what you were mentioning before, is like, there's an index type node on Flow called the access node. And when you want to query what's happening on with there, you can actually write a full Cadence script. So you can write a full code base, like almost like a little mini program, and throw that at the network, and it'll spit back data to you dynamically from there. And you don't necessarily have to go read what's this parameter inside of this smart contract. It goes, here's a for loop, here's a couple pieces over here, here's a while loop. Tell me what my response would be for this. And that just opens up this whole data lake effectively to you of the network that's also the compute engine for what everyone else is building on. And it really allows for LLMs to engage and operate in a whole new model, recognizing different trends and not having to rely on third-party indexers that maybe have limited indexing, or maybe have their own LLM that they're trying to encourage and maybe want to cut you off or give you slower data or old data. You don't have to do any of that. You can just trust the protocol, trust the network itself, and engage directly with Flow.
Great. And yeah, trust seems to be a central tenet of building and using Flow. I'm curious on the hackathon side of things. Flow's captured 17.7% of ETHGlobal submissions across 3 events recently. Have any of these submissions resulted in like an active protocol on Flow being built?
Yeah, we've had quite a few progress to be on a mainnet, to be in kind of profit generating businesses. I even think about most recently at New York. That was maybe only a week ago. ETHGlobal NYC. I think Sean was there. Flow, I think, was the #1 built on platform, and I say like platform in the sense of like that includes L1s, L2s, infrastructure partners, block explorers, like just, full stop, which is pretty cool. I think it was like 1 in 4 builders chose Flow. 40% of the finalists built on Flow. I mean, it's wild, and it's easy to forget that not, maybe less than a year ago, literally almost by a few days, Flow is not EVM equivalent, and now Flow is one of the most built on platforms at ETH hackathons, which is crazy. But we have a couple of those apps. ETHGlobal has been an amazing partner to us, and we really feel like Flow kind of became protocol level EVM equivalent, and really thank ETHGlobal for introducing us to the Ethereum community. They've been just such great hosts for us in that way. But most recently in Cannes, ETHGlobal debuted what they called Spotlight, which is projects that were finalists of previous hackathons kind of get showcased in the next hackathon. They get a little bit of progression, a little bit of spotlight. And so there's 4 projects they highlighted, and 2 of them built on Flow. One was called Pomodoki, which was kind of what it sounds like. There's Pomodoro, it's a focus technique, and there's a little Tamagotchi on chain. And then there's Decycle, which turns trash into tokens, which is a hilarious concept. But projects like Pomodoki have gone on to join an accelerator from Protocol Labs. So they're getting funding, they're accelerated. And so we just absolutely love to see projects go from hackathon, winning prizes, and the kind of momentum building, getting funding, and going further, which is just so cool. So yeah, we've seen that happen multiple times with different apps. And the only other thing that I'll kind of add as an anecdote is I think in ETH Denver, one of the apps won the ETH Denver hackathon, and it was a Cadence app. It's called Derbyfish. And so there's a certain piece to it where we're trying to get away from saying dApps, and we just want to say apps, because we feel like apps that build on Flow and build with Cadence can go toe to toe with apps that you would find in the App Store, and they should be measured in that way. And it seems like judges at hackathons have recognized that, and it's almost undeniable because our Flow apps just keep winning prizes because they're so great. So we're really proud of that.
And what do you think makes the Flow blockchain this optimal blockchain for development?
Yeah, I think a couple things, and I'll go back to like the foundation of Flow, right? It came from a bunch of app builders that built one of the first like breakout apps, I'd argue, in Ethereum with CryptoKitties, right? And everyone walked away from CryptoKitties just thinking we need more blocks, we need more transactions. But the team that actually built CryptoKitties walked away with a few other insights that I think we're really seeing pay off with Flow. And Flow is the goal was not to build a better protocol, not to build faster blocks, not to fit more transactions in a little block by making them bigger. It was to build a developer platform and an open computer that everyone can trust, anyone can use, and no one can shut down. And at the end of the day, that mission of really kind of building this open operating system and open kernel, and now building the layers on top of that are really starting to see dividends, like Matt said, of people winning competitions because they're building just better apps in shorter amount of time. A couple things that we've integrated directly in the protocol to call out, one of which is like a random number. So every 0.8 seconds, every block on Flow, there's a new random number generated, and it's as easy as getting that random number out of the block as 3 lines of code. Versus for other networks, you have to like go find this other token, go fund another token on another platform somewhere, request that they send it to you, hope they respond back to you, and then depending on how fast your network moves, that could be seconds, minutes, if they respond back, and then you have to handle all of the reentrancy problems of if someone else responds back to you. But because Flow was built by people that built applications, they embedded things in the protocol that help those application builders. And honestly, there are many times they take on like harder work as a protocol because they don't want to put more challenges on the developer themselves. And I can also point to that of how Flow built its whole scaling model, in the sense of like, you don't see L2s on Flow because we don't need L2s on Flow. It scales directly with those applications. And that's under the fundamental belief of, with CryptoKitties, they built an app, it blew up, it got huge. They wanted to build more apps. They didn't want to go build a network or an infrastructure or an ecosystem. They wanted to build more apps. And so really trying to make sure that app builders can find a home that they can place roots in, and that will grow with them, and that has the core principles. First one to kind of like we've really continuously pointed to, and many builders have loved, is that on-chain random. There's more coming up with Forte later this year, but I think we'll get to that later, and I won't dive into those right now.
Yeah, definitely going to dive into Forte. I guess we can talk a little bit about the DeFi ecosystem before getting to that. I'm curious if there's a consumer to DeFi flywheel. So what I mean by that is, are are users getting onboarded via rewards, collectibles, and loyalty initiatives, then ending up using DeFi protocols?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting kind of experiments happening on Flow, right? Because this is the bleeding edge, and there's some of it that can truly only happen on Flow, which I think is really interesting. You talked consumer DeFi flywheel. The thing that most immediately comes to mind is there's a project called Voltopolis by one of a great builder here in the community. So you can take your Top Shot moments and deposit them into a vault. I think there's like 100,000 Top Shot moments in there right now, and you get this token, a fungible token in return called T-Shot, right? And so then you can go take that T-Shot token, you go take it to different farms like on Kitty Punch, things like that, earn yield, do whatever you would do with a fungible token with it. But you can also take it back to the vault, deposit it, and then get random Top Shot moments in return. So it's like this very interesting spin on DeFi, consumer behavior, unpack ripping almost. It's like this combination of all the above, and the community is really taking it. It's super fun, and it's also essentially a asset-backed coin in the way that you can always redeem one T shot for one Top Shot moment. And so I think the emergent things that are going to happen on that are really interesting. The second one that comes to mind is from Kitty Punch, which is one of the dexes on Flow. It handles a ton of volume, I think like greater than 80 or 90% of volume on Flow. They just debuted a product called DPIN, which is obviously a pun for DPIN, but it's essentially like a Disney DATCO. I think a lot of people have been talking about DATCOs recently, and so it's an on-chain DATCO in the way that they have a Disney Pinnacle account and they can go buy Disney pins, but they have a DPIN token that acts as the kind of treasury token for that. So the Disney Pinnacle app currently has kind of bi-weekly trading events that are kind of limited, but this DPIN token is traded 24/7, 365. And so it's like, yeah, there's so many interesting experiments happening here on Flow with like kind of consumer DeFi. Those are a little more kind of fun and interesting. But I will say that I think that one of the things that we hope to see emerge over the long term is products that your everyday person would use. In the same way that I am like shilling Disney Pinnacle to my friends and family because I know that they can onboard themselves. Like if there was a high yield savings product that could be built on top of Flow, I would feel confident telling my family about that. Fintech products are starting to become more adopted by everyday folks who want to get a little bit better returns on their money, and so there's no reason why that shouldn't be able to be built on chain. And so maybe we'll see something like that emerge on Flow as well.
Very interesting. And why do you think DeFi has seen such, significant growth over the past 2 quarters?
I think, I mean, from a very kind of base level, I think it's more the ability to do that now. Like you said, now with all of this bridging infrastructure. I mean, previous to the Crescendo upgrade, I think Sean, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. There was one bridge, a singular bridge, and it wasn't very familiar to a lot of people in the EVM environment. But now there is like so much bridging opportunity, so much kind of cross-chain, multi-chain. Like you can go buy a Top Shot moment on OpenSea with Solana or with Fartcoin or with whatever you want. Like, and that can happen seamlessly now. And so I think that's led to an explosion of DeFi activity. Not to mention like PYUSD on the network. I think I personally am like that. That to me is like kind of a consumer crypto dollar in the sense that if I tell my friends and family what a stablecoin is, and I go, oh, well, there's these companies you've never heard of. They're going to go, I don't know. But if we go, PayPal has one, they go, I know what that means. And so PayPal now makes up greater than 65% of the stablecoin volume here on Flow, which I think is awesome. And so I think, yeah, ability. We have some really kind of, I'll give them the credit again, like amazing builders like Kitty Punch, like More Markets, like the Increment team, like Voltopolis. And so I think credit where credit is due for our builders. We at the protocol level try to provide the infrastructure and bring that kind of tooling on board, but our builders have really has been what it's kind of taken it as far as it's gone.
Sort of a, if you build it, they'll come mentality.
Sure, 100%.
And when it comes to the future of Flow, there's a lot happening on the horizon, with the Forte upgrade. Could you tell me a little bit about what's in store for that upgrade, Sean?
Yeah, so Forte's coming up October 22nd, and I think Matt's going to give more of that rollout here soon. But for Forte, we have a few core components that are again really exciting, and some of these things like actions are one of those opportunities that I think we'll have to kind of see a few applications show before it really clicks with many people. But how I look at actions, it's the same kind of narrative or story that you look at Deet, who's the creator of ERC 721 and our chief protocol architect. What he did with ERC 721 is he created a standard where he noticed a trend and then opened up the doors for a marketplace like OpenSea to exist, right? And you see the same thing happen with ERC20. They created a standard and opened up the doors for DeFi. And these two things of DeFi and NFTs have really kind of been the underpinnings of what has been built of crypto so far. And really what actions looks like it's doing is it's recognizing, hey, now we have a lot of verbs that people can do on chain with DeFi, whether that's swapping, whether that's sending, whether that's taking yield or stacking yield or taking out a loan. These can all be really combined down to a few verbs themselves, and then let's build a standard around that. So actions allow for people to swap, allow people to get tokens, send tokens, get a price check from an oracle, or to do a flash loan. And then it allows for protocols underneath to go to those API standards so that application developers can just integrate with that single standard, that same interface, and that protocol developers now can compete on technology and not necessarily how good their marketing team is at getting people to their decks to swap, or how juicy their returns can be, or the promise of something in the future. Really compete on tech, trying to have the least amount of slippage, have the deepest pools that are possible, and then allowing for everyone to kind of be able to build on top of that. And so when we talk about the DeFi ecosystem or what that can mean in crypto, I like to point to like whether it's a bakery or a restaurant, like you swipe your credit card there. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can swipe your credit card. It could be something you're buying something in euros, but you're using US dollars. You don't necessarily call that place a bank or a currency exchange, right? You don't call these things financial instruments. You're going there to buy a croissant or you're going there to buy a pastry. And that's how DeFi should start to feel more and more on chain. And things like actions allow for that to be possible, allowing for builders to focus on what their application is and making sure the financial rails just work, just like the swipe of that credit card that you have at your local bakery.
That's very exciting. And what makes Forte the biggest protocol change since Cadence?
Yeah, so Forte is the biggest protocol change because it's really that next step that we've pictured, right? So much of Flow has been trying to either get Cadence the language to a maturity that we can say, hey, we've hit 1.0, or so much of us trying to catch up to what's been happening in the EVM space. And late last year, we kind of hit both of those with EVM Equivalence and Cadence 1.0. So then this past 10, 12 months, we've been able to build back to what we want to do, building the best developer platform for developers to build with. And that's what you'll see. So like we've already talked about actions and agents. There's more coming there. Like there's more things that we're wanting to talk about that's coming out with Forte. And I would argue some of the more exciting things we haven't talked about yet. But there's more and more coming with Forte. And I'm really kind of, I get excited of what I think I can build, especially with our AI push that we've been doing and trying to play with, like whether it's Cursor or Claude Code, these core primitives. We've seen AI pick up pictures like with actions and agents. Deet's demo that we debuted actions with was fully a Cursor 5-coded transaction and how he used actions on top of that. We're opening the doors so much for people to be creative and build. And like that's, I think, part one of a mini part thing that we're trying to get to with Forte. So more to come of what's coming out with Forte. And again, it's really just us being able to get back to our roots as builders and trying to give builders the best tools that they can possibly use to build the best apps.
And when can users expect this to roll out on mainnet?
I'm gonna cue that one up for Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah. So testnet, we just announced testnet's gonna be live September 17th. And then mainnet will be live October 22nd. So it is right around the corner. And yeah, we can be more excited. I think, like Sean was saying, we feel like this is gonna be a huge unlock of creativity. And not that you don't have to still do like defensive code and things like that, but in AI, people have seen this with AI just as like LLMs more broadly, whatever. They feel like if we can kind of reduce the barrier to entry, you're going to see a creativity explosion. And so we see this in the same way. Actions and agents or actions and workflows will allow people to focus more on what they want the thing to do for their users, as opposed to how do I make sure that it doesn't explode? And so I think we're just going to see an explosion of creativity on chain. Thanks, Dan. I just can't wait.
Awesome. Well, Those are really all the questions I had for this discussion. Is there anything you'd like to share, Sean and Matt, that we haven't gotten a chance to discuss?
No, I think biggest things for us, you can always go to flow.com/events, see where we've been. We've been sending some of our awesome engineers all over the globe, whether it's our DevRel team or our actual tooling team. We put them with builders and we make the tools that they need to get the job done. So go meet us IRL. We're all over the place, and please hit us up on Twitter as well. I do my best to be active. I swear I tweet more than just emojis. If you want to get into a discussion, we can always chat more. But Sean P. Robb, SeanProbb. I'd love to chat more about Flow or Web3 in general.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the discussion. For anyone looking to get more details on the Flow protocol and its recent Q2 report, the link should be in our Twitter, as well as added to the subtweet of this live stream.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Yousef. This has been incredible. The Q2 report was amazing. Yeah, please feel free, everyone, to check that out. Flow had an incredibly strong quarter, and we can't wait for the Q3 report coming out soon.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.